Hello and welcome to Trying Times. My name's Carmen. If you're new here, I hope you're so well and I'm so excited to have you. If you're returning, then thank you so much for coming back. You might notice that my voice sounds not like it normally does, and I will say I'm just getting over a flu, if you will, or the flu. I don't know how to put that. I got hit real bad this past week by the flu, and it's been a nightmare. I'm not gonna lie. I've felt terrible. So there's that. I don't know what it is. There's something going around right now. Everybody's getting sick. It's like that weird transitional season where it's still cold, but then there's randomly like warm days in between. And then everyone gets excited because we're all like deprived of the sun. So when it's warm and sunny, everyone runs out with like a coat on. And yeah, this is what happens then. But yeah, I know a few of my friends were just not feeling too hot in the past weeks as well. So guess it's my turn. Well, hopefully though, you're not sick. Hopefully you're doing good. Hopefully you don't catch whatever it is that this is, because yeah, it's not a fun time. But that's besides the point. Welcome to the show. In this episode, I want to talk about something that I've talked about a number of times, and I've talked about this topic specifically probably I think twice already. But I did want to bring it back because it's something that I feel could always be further developed or further discussed, and there's just so much to learn about. So, without further ado, in this episode we will be talking about mindfulness, which is genuinely one of my favorite things to learn about, talk about, you name it. I love it. It's fun. It's great. Also, before I really get into this, I just want to say, please bear with me with my voice. I keep talking and my voice cracks, or I have to cough, or I like lose my breath. It's real good. It's real fun. But anyways, moving into this. I wanted to start this, as I always do, with a little bit of an interesting fact. So, as discussed by the American Psychology Association, mindfulness has a wide variety of benefits, which I think this is something that's quite well known when it comes to mindfulness, is that it has a wide array of benefits. And some of those are reducing rumination. So if you sometimes find yourself getting stuck in that cycle of overthinking, or in this really bad spot of just like the same thoughts over and over and over again, that could be considered rumination. And mindfulness can actually help to reduce that because it brings you to the current moment or the present moment. So it kind of pulls you out of that loop, which is great. Another thing it can reduce is stress, which I think we could all do without, but that's just not how life goes. So that's another great thing that you can take away from mindfulness. It also boosts memory function, which is pretty cool. I do think that one of the offsets of stress or chronic stress is that it can affect your memory. So I find it really interesting that mindfulness is something that can definitely keep that a little bit more intact. It also helps to better your focus and cognitive function, which is very cool. And again, I think goes hand in hand with the memory function. It also helps to lessen emotional reactivity, which I feel like I understand this one, sometimes in a good way and sometimes not in a good way. But sometimes I think it is easy in a state of heightened emotions. Maybe if you've been ruminating a lot, maybe if you've been really stressed with things going on around you, it's easy to have a very emotional reaction, or sort of a blowout, if you will. And I think when you practice something like mindfulness regularly, it can help to combat that for a number of reasons, of course, but mainly because you're forcing yourself to be in the present. So you might be wondering, how can I go about practicing mindfulness? And I will start by saying there are a handful of ways to go about mindfulness in your day-to-day life. But a huge area that people love to delve into, myself included, is meditation. According to a study done by Headspace, just 10 days of guided meditation can actually reduce your stress by 14%. If kept at for 3 weeks, it can reduce aggression by 57%. In addition, it can increase compassion by 23%, which is actually pretty incredible. And if you think about that, I know there's that whole saying of if you practice something or you stick to something for 21 days, you can basically form a new habit, which is really interesting. So I think that is something I want to push myself to do with meditation for sure. I find it's something that I do kind of as a one-off, or sometimes I'll do it a couple times in a week and be like, oh, I feel really good. And then I forget about it. Sometimes I only think about doing it when I feel really bad, but I need to start practicing it, and in all kinds of moments. I'm just reading myself to filth here. But I found that really interesting. And I will go on to say that mindfulness is something that I feel fortunate to have learned about around the time that I was either 18 or 19. And I was just in the process of actually seeing my very first therapist. And I didn't really know much about mindfulness. I hadn't really heard about it until she was talking to me about it one day, because we were talking about rumination, and she was like, have you ever heard of mindfulness? And I was like, what is that? Then we had this really long conversation about that. And I think immediately it made me realize how much I wanted to practice components of this so regularly, just to implement it into my general lifestyle, because it is definitely life-changing in a number of ways. I think you can take a lot of things away from therapy. There's so many wonderful strategies. There's so many wonderful mechanisms, or coping mechanisms, if you will. And I know a big component in therapy can be building out like your toolkit. And what I mean by that is basically having this kit that is your go-to when sometimes you feel like you're in a moment of catastrophe, or sometimes you're feeling over inundated or overwhelmed. You can reflect on your toolkit and look at all the different strategies that you have, that you know have worked for you before, that you've tried out before. And maybe you've talked about this with a therapist, or, whoever else may be helping you with this. Or maybe you've just done a lot of research and you've been like, you know what, let me try these things out for myself. You've now formed a toolkit for yourself, which is exciting, because that basically just means in a handful of situations, whether you're feeling discomfort, whether you're feeling super, super anxious, upset, whatever have you, there's a tool to help you cope with that a little bit better. Mindfulness, I would like to say, is the thing that formed my toolkit, and it's something I'm still practicing to this day. So a big thing I took away from this method, if you will, is the concept of journaling, which I try to switch up how I do this. And I was doing really good at this up until maybe last month, and then I just kind of stopped. But I was journaling daily, and I would kind of switch this up weekly in terms of like how I would journal. So for the most part, I would recount my day, or specifically positive parts of my day, and then I would follow that up by meditation. And it's something I do genuinely enjoy, but it's something like I said, I need to put more of an effort into doing it, because I think with that, you just kind of have to feel like you're in the right moment and go for it when you can. But it's not one of those things. You kind of can just do it whenever you want. You don't have to be in a specific headspace. For me, at least, I think for a long time, it felt like I needed to be in a very specific headspace. Even though you don't, you can kind of do it at any point in time. And I think that's the beauty in it. Like, if you're upset, try to meditate. If you're angry, try to meditate. If you're content, try to meditate. If you're maybe feeling, a little stressed, meditate. Like, it all just really puts you into your body and into the present moment mostly, and gets you to sit there and really think about this and think it through. And I think that that's beautiful, because we don't do that enough. I think it's really easy to get distracted and wrapped up in things and forget what's going on right in front of you, or what might actually be happening in your immediate surroundings. And I can honestly say there's been a handful of times where I've been in a public setting and maybe I just don't want to connect with anyone around me, or maybe I'm alone and I just want to be, not approached or seem closed off. I'll just have my head down in my phone. Like, I'll literally just be scrolling, and sometimes I'm just scrolling through the weather app. I'm going to be honest with you. Sometimes it's not even anything crazy. I have a habit of, I'll be honest with you right now, I'll read myself here. I have a habit of checking my weather app and checking my email like nobody's business. Like, it's crazy. My sister teases me about how much I check the weather app. I'm known in my house as the weatherman, because I'm on it. Like, I'm on it all the time. Then maybe that brings me peace. I don't know. There's got to be something around that. But yeah, I do be checking the weather like crazy. And then I check my email a lot. There's rare occasions where I'll get really sucked into a new game, so I'll be playing that a lot. That kind of comes and goes. But yeah, it's usually weather and email. But there are so many times where I'll be doing that in public and I'll genuinely forget what's even going on around me. Like, I'm still alert of what's happening around me. Of course, I'm aware, but I'm not actually physically present in that moment. Like, I'm just doing whatever it is that I'm doing on my phone. And I find that so interesting, because the more I look around, I realize a lot of people are doing this as well. And I find this to be such an interesting concept, because smartphones in itself didn't really come to fruition till, like 10, 11 years ago, maybe. Before that, we all had, I'll be honest, my first phone I got my first phone when I was in high school, and it was an iPhone. But my friends that did have phones before me all had those really cool Sidekicks or Blackberries or flip phones. And so, yeah, everyone was just texting on those. You were texting, you were changing your ringtone. I don't know that there was much to do on there aside from that. Maybe a game or two. I don't know if they had the weather app, but I will say now it's like we have the world in our hands. You can do literally anything versus what we had before, right? Before we had, I don't know, maybe the iPod Touch or whatnot. Like, you didn't even really have music in your phone. You know what I mean? We had our phones as a very basic function of what it should be as a phone. And now, fast forward to current time, it's really interesting to me how, for instance, when my phone started to get really slow and it was not working very well. So I had to go upgrade my phone. And I kept my old one because I was like, I want to keep my social media on this phone. And then my other phone will just be, like for email and weather, and text, of course, and calls. So I wanted to keep it to that. And I'll be honest when I say I kept it to that for maybe 2 weeks. That 2 weeks was very peaceful. It was actually very peaceful. I felt quite mindful, I'm pretty sure. And I don't know why I stopped. Something triggered in my brain. And I was like, oh, I can't be at peace. Like, there's just, I felt out of the loop is what I think it was. I needed to know it was happening all the time, even though there's really no deep actual, necessary need, I think, all of the time for every second of the day to know what's happening all the time, everywhere, with everyone. It's not like I cut myself off and I wasn't allowed to go on these things. Like, I had my phone when I was home, or I would limit myself to only checking it maybe like in the evening for, 10 to 20 minutes and then just leave it be. Something like TikTok, I would scroll through a lot. I hate admitting that, but it's true. So I don't know what happened, but eventually I got those apps onto my new phone and they have since never left. They are now part of the algorithm of my brain all the time. And I hate it. I find it so interesting though, all this to say, now there are phones coming out, or people are reverting to old ways where they are buying, what do they call them? It's not like a no-tech phone or something like that. Maybe it's a no-tech phone, or it's like a minimalist phone, or there's like 50 different names for it. But people are buying these phones now that literally don't have any other function in them besides calling and texting, which is really all you need when you think about it. And it's like the very main necessities of a phone. Everything else that we have on our phones is very extra, and it's not necessary at all. It's just kind of more of a luxury than anything else, if we even want to call it that. So I find it interesting because for me, I felt in a state of mindfulness and I felt okay not having all of that on my phone. But part of me also felt a little bit of unease or discomfort. And I was like, oh no, but I should have that on my phone. Why don't I have that on my phone? So I had to kind of go back to my old ways. I didn't have to, but I chose to go back to my old ways. And here we are. Now I have all the apps on my phone and it's brutal. I am noticing that I'm slowly having the desire to take them off again. So we'll see how that goes in maybe the next couple months. But yeah, it's interesting. I'm trying to practice also. As I mentioned, sometimes I'll be out in public and I'll just have my phone out and like my head is just like, I'm just looking at my phone. I'm trying to practice not doing that as much because like I said, I really don't even need to be checking it half the time. Even if there's something, if I miss a call or if I miss a text, I'll get to it. It's not really do or die, but it is something that I'm trying to practice a little bit more and not just be like engulfed in it, because I find that that's such an easy way to lose that mindfulness and to lose gratitude as well, because you're constantly sucked into something else while you're actually in another place. And that's really grim to think about that way. But yeah, I don't know. Just went on a whole tangent there about my phone. But moving on, I wanted to share a couple things here because I actually have an audience participation submission here from a friend about what they think about mindfulness. And I will also say that I have some things highlighted that I really want to share from Reddit that I think are interesting about this. So what my friend wants to share here about mindfulness, also this is from Victoria. Victoria, thank you so much for submitting this. I appreciate you. I love you. She basically said, mindfulness to me means being aware or present in the time. I feel like it's easy to get caught up at work and in life, and that it can feel hard to take time for ourselves, but it's so important. Very much agreed. And I think I'm realizing more that as I get older, time flies. So you got to take the time for you and your family and friends. I completely agree with that 100%. She also adds in, another thing that comes to mind is being mindful of others and how what you say comes across is another really important thing. I agree with that tenfold. I don't think enough people do think about that, really. And that's a good point, because mindfulness, I think, sometimes just escapes all of us, really. And I think it can create a lack of maybe consideration, a lack of, just that overall consideration for others as a whole, what someone else might be going through. And we kind of just forget. And then sometimes you say things you don't mean. And that whole response that Victoria just had there was really great, because she highlighted so many amazing things in there about just taking that time. And I agree. That is the other thing I'll say. Her and I do joke about it all the time, where it's like, we're now 28 years old and this year is going to be 29. So we're getting a little bit older and older. And I know I talk to other people and they're just like, that's actually not old. So I'm aware. But it is interesting, the jump of that age and then thinking back to when I was 20 feels like light years ago. And time does seem to move a lot faster as you get older. Things start to go faster. Life starts to come at you. Things will happen, both positive and negative, and you kind of just have to learn to bend with it and move with it. And also, it teaches you that you shouldn't take things for granted and that you should very much be present and enjoy things as they're happening around you. So I really appreciated that answer. And I think Victoria did a really good job at highlighting some things that I may have even forgotten to mention. So I really love that. The other thing I wanted to share was that I found a thread on Reddit under the mindfulness sub. So I wanted to share it because I feel like it could be a good way to round up the episode. So someone asked, as a beginner, how do I start learning and practicing mindfulness? Someone responded, and this is a very good comment to start this off, and said, I see a lot of very non-helpful comments here. To begin mindfulness, you have to be intentional with it, which is very true. This is what mindfulness is, intentional being, witnessing the moments as they are while you are physically and mentally connected. To start, first you begin to simply witness yourself without judgment. You'll find it hard at first to concentrate on the present moment without thought pulling to the past or future. When you find where your mind tends to pull away from the current present moments, those are the thoughts you want to be aware of, but not judge. Those are your monkey brain thoughts. I thought that was interesting. This can look like, wow, I notice I think about work outside of work. And eventually, with lots of time and recognition and intention, evolve to, I'm worrying about work again. And while I recognize I'm really stressed about that meeting coming up, stressing won't help me out. And I'm currently enjoying a movie with my friend. So let me put this thought down and pick it up later. The whole point of being mindful is to be present, purposeful with your thoughts, and master the art of now. So well put. Another person wrote, stay present in your daily life. The little things like showering, washing dishes, making coffee, just don't do it on autopilot. Smell, taste, touch, look, mind wanders, and then refocus on present. Till now, our mind has been left to go wherever, say whatever, with us not at the control station. Try to focus your wandering mind on these small but ever so important moments. Like all the things, the more you practice, the more you progress. I really liked that one because it's kind of, I don't know, when I read that, I kind of thought about it as like learning how to ride a bike for some reason. It's going to feel really weird at first, but over time you just keep going and it becomes muscle memory. And that is one of the things with your brain as well. It is very possible to form, I'm about to say something and I don't want to drop any sort of scientific facts in here because I don't really know the terminology off the top of my head, but it is very, very possible to form new pathways within your brain, like new neural pathways, I believe, but it's something that you have to continuously do, and it can actually change the way you think altogether. So that is something I really, really appreciate, is that person bringing that up as an example, because yeah, you just have to kind of keep at it. Another person said use guided meditation to start. That's a really good one. That's what I do a lot of the time. A quiet spot where you won't be distracted. And yes, you will be distracted by yourself, but if you keep trying every day, it'll get better and you will find peaceful meditation. That's a good point. I do meditate always with a guided meditation track playing, just because it's telling you what to do. And it feels a little bit less distracting in the sense where my brain does wander a lot. So I will get distracted if it's not guided. I'll just sit there and be like, oh my God. And I find myself thinking for the full 10 to however many minutes I'm doing it for, instead of just being present and like actually tuning into what's going on in my head and my body. I'm just like, oh my God, wait, okay, so I was supposed to do this yesterday. And then, okay, wait, what do I do tomorrow? No. Try a guided meditation if you haven't yet. It's going to feel weird. You're going to be like, what's going on here? It's actually very, very helpful. I very much love it. And then the last, but not least, my favorite answer. Somebody said, when you walk down the street, focus on your surroundings. I just want to drop that one in there because It sounds hilarious and it is kind of funny, but they're not wrong. Like they're very right actually. I appreciate that answer because it's sometimes in those moments where everybody forgets what's going on. I'm not going to lie, sometimes I'll be out for a run. Actually, this doesn't happen when I run because I find running helps me really lock in and be aware of what's going on. And I love running outside for that reason because I can take in my surroundings. Sometimes when I go for a walk, I find if I don't have music playing or I don't have my phone out, I just can't focus to save my life. Like I'm just like literally thinking so much that it's not even allowing me to focus on my surroundings. So I really appreciate that one because it can be just practicing going on walks without distractions and just being aware of your surroundings. It could start in a number of ways. And I think all those answers help to show that too. So yeah, thank you so much for listening to my nasally voice. I feel like I sounded like Squidward. I really appreciate you listening and being here. And I want to know what your takes are on mindfulness and if you've practiced this before and where you're at with it. So if you want to share that, please feel free to go DM me on Instagram at the Trying Times Podcast. I would love to hear from you. And if you want to participate in a future episode, please feel free to check out the link in bio on Instagram, again, at the Trying Times Podcast, to click on that Google form and select some of the prompts that you want to answer. And I'll share one of your answers in a future episode, if that's cool with you, of course. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. I hope you're having a great day or night whenever you're listening to this. And we'll chat again soon, okay? Bye.